Nick Young is gone. We have completed our first trade, but before I get into that and who I've traded Nick Young for, I want to tell you guys about all the other trades happening around the league. We're about 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. Things are starting to get crazy. There are some teams that are going into full rebuilds. There are some teams that are really going for it. So I'm going to let you guys know about the other trades that have been made before we get into mine. First, I want to talk about the Pacers because they're really hurting us. First, they trade Paul George to the 76ers, really hurting our chances at getting him in free agency maybe if he wants to stay with that young team. I'm a little worried about that. But now they've gone into a full rebuild and they're putting all of their veterans. They have a lot of shooters and veterans. They're putting them all out on the market, which is hurting us because we're one of the rare teams that have some veteran shooters. And now they're putting all their guys out there. So they've been getting a lot of offers that maybe we would be getting if those guys weren't out there. But the first trade they've made is to the Pelicans. This works for both teams. The Pelicans, they get a veteran in Jeff Teague, even though they already have Drew Holiday. But we'll talk about that lineup situation in a little bit. And they give them a first-round pick and Omer Asik for Jeff Teague. So the Pacers get Omer Asik and a first-round pick. The Pelicans get Jeff Teague. The Pelicans get the Omer Asik contract off their books. They have to give up a first-round pick to the Pacers, who now they're in the rebuild. They want the first-round pick, so they'll take Asik's contract. Not sure if they'll buy him out or if they'll just keep him on the roster. I'd probably buy him out because you got those two centers in Indiana, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about their lineups in a sec. And they get that first-round pick that they really wanted so they can kind of jumpstart that rebuild. Now they're starting to rack up a lot of picks in Indiana, and the Pelicans are really going. Now they've got Jeff Teague. They're kind of going for it. Now getting on to the veterans that the Pacers have traded away. They traded C.J. Miles to the Spurs straight up for Davis. I'm not sure if it's Davis or David Bertans. He's the European power forward shooter. The Spurs get C.J. Miles, a veteran shooter. Then the Pacers traded Rodney Stuckey to the Bulls for Michael Carter-Williams. Michael Carter-Williams hasn't really worked out for the Bulls. He's still kind of young. He did win Rookie of the Year. There's some potential there. I guess the Pacers, he'll probably jump into that Jeff Teague starting spot. They'll see what they have with Carter-Williams. And on the Bulls side, they get Rodney Stuckey, a shooter to kind of space the floor for Butler, Wade, and Rondo. And then the Pacers also traded Thaddeus Young to the Heat for Okara White, getting rid of that veteran contract off their books. The Pacers, the Heat get a guy that will help them in the playoffs, a veteran. Thaddeus Young is surprisingly a good three-point shooter. He's really worked on that for this day and age NBA. And then the Pacers get Okara White, a young defensive guy who can kind of shoot the ball, another guy with potential. So the Pacers are pretty much going into a full rebuild. They got Jahlil Okafor in that Paul George trade. Now they've got Carter Williams, and they already have Miles Turner. So what they're doing, I think, is they're probably the Okafor and Miles Turner are really their two franchise guys, but they're both centers. So I would try to play those two together. I think they're playing those two together. See if they can play together. See if those two can make it in the future. If not, they're probably going to have to pick one. Personally, I'd go with Turner, but they've got the rest of this season to play those two together and either decide if they can play together or if they need to pick one. Then they've gotten a lot of young guys with potential on the wing. They got Michael Carter-Williams, who he could end up being okay. I mean, he showed potential in Philly, and then ever since then, he really just hasn't gotten the time, I think, to really prove that he's still a good player. So he's going to get the time there. They've got They've got their own first-round pick. They've got the Sixers pick, if I remember right. I think the Sixers gave them a pick to get George, and now they've got the pick that they got from the Pelicans. So they've got 3 first-round picks in this loaded draft. So if you got to rebuild, they're doing it the right way, I think. I think Larry Bird's doing a good job, but at the same time, he's kind of screwing us over in this because now all these teams have given up pieces for veteran shooters, and now they really don't need them. So it kind of hurt me when I was putting Nick Young and Corey Brewer out there on the market. Another team that's been really active is the Pelicans. They already acquired Jeff Teague and got rid of that Omer Asik contract, and they had to give up a first-round pick to do that. But they also traded Alexis Ajinça, Solomon Hill, and a first-round pick to the Atlanta Hawks for Mike Dunleavy and Kent Bazemore. Now, Kent Bazemore is on that huge contract, but you're getting off of Jinx's contract and Solomon Hill's big contract, so those two pretty much even out to Bazemore's. You're still paying a little more, I think, with Bazemore's, but it's not that much more, and Bazemore is a better player than either of those two. They're also getting Mike Dunleavy, a shooter. They're really going all for it, getting Teague, Dunleavy, and Bazemore to put around the two bigs in Cousins and Davis. I mean, they've got the two best bigs in the league. Now they've got these shooters and playmakers around them. Cousins, they've got another year in his contract, then he's a free agent. I think they're really going for it, trying to convince Cousins that they will put the guys around him to succeed, hoping to re-sign him. But they're really dangerous now. They've got Holiday, Teague, Dunleavy's a good three-point shooter. Bazemore is an all-around wing, can play D, can shoot. They've gotten rid of the Oshik contract, Alexis Ajinx's contract, and Solomon Hill's contract. The one thing I don't understand really is from the Hawks' perspective. I mean, you get rid of a veteran, Dunleavy, that's fine. You do get a first-round pick, I understand that. You take on Solomon Hill, who maybe they think they can develop. He's on a long contract. Maybe they're like, we need to get off Bazemore's huge contract, and we'll take Solomon Hill, even though he's on a big one. It's not as big as Bazemore. And maybe they figure they can develop Solomon Hill. I know they are trying to go young. The thing with the Hawks is they're kind of right in the middle of the league. They're not bad where they're getting top picks, but they're getting beat out in the first and second round of the playoffs. They don't really have a shot to win it. So I'm not really sure what their idea is here. Maybe they're going to start going into a full rebuild and get rid of some of their guys, but they just signed Howard. Schroeder's on the team. They're young. They're not old. They're not really young. They're not rebuilding. They're not championship team. I'm not sure what the Hawks are doing, but from the Pelicans' perspective, they are really going all for it, putting the pieces around Cousins and Davis. There's one other trade that happened between the Nuggets and the Jazz. The Nuggets give up Danilo Gallinari, and the Jazz give up Alec Burks and a first-round pick. So the Nuggets are giving up Gallinari, who's going to leave them after this year probably. There's rumors he's going to go to the Clippers. He's in the last year of his contract. They give him up. They get something for him. They get a first-round pick, and they get Alec Burks, who's a solid player. He's really just fallen out of the rotation for the Jazz. The Jazz have been trying to get rid of his contract because they need the room to re-sign George Hill and Gordon Hayward. That's why they have to give up the first-round pick, because Burks has got 2 years left on his contract, 1 or 2, and the Nuggets are taking that on. The Nuggets get a solid player in Burks who they can give some minutes to. He gets a little bit of time in Utah, not a lot. And the Jazz can really go for it with Gallo and Hayward and Gobert and George this year. I'm not sure if they'll try to re-sign Gallo, but if not, he's off their books and they get money to re-sign their other guys. Now on to our first trade of the season. We have traded Nick Young to the Detroit Pistons for Darren Hillard. First, I want to go through some of the other players you guys suggested. Gary Harris, the Nuggets didn't want to give him up. Justice Winslow is young and has too much potential. It just doesn't make sense for the Heat. Same thing with Jay Crowder, young, potential, doesn't make a lot of sense. Andre Roberson can't shoot at all, and he's older. I like his defense, but I just don't like him all around. Allen Crabbe, the Blazers felt like they were losing in that deal. They're giving up a young guy. I didn't really want to take on his big contract, although if the Trailblazers would have wanted to do that, I would have had to seriously consider it, because the Blazers, they'd be getting off a big contract. They open up some cap space. They get Nick Young, who's generally the same type of player as Crabbe, just a lot older. Crabbe's a solid young guy with some potential. Kind of struggles on defense, but he can really shoot the three. I would have had to think about it, but they didn't feel comfortable doing it. They felt like they were losing the clearly better player, so that didn't last. There was Norman Powell from the Raptors. I talked to them a lot, really tried to convince. I was trying to get Powell bad. They have PJ Tucker, and I was trying to convince them that you've got PJ Tucker. He's your wing defender, your 3-and-D player. Powell's losing time to him, and they were looking at it as like PJ Tucker's getting older. He's about to leave them, and Powell can step in and take that role. So they didn't really want to give up Powell, and that was tough because I really tried to get Powell. So we ended up going back to the Pistons, who I think I talked about a few videos ago, and we acquired Hillard. He's 23, young guy, shooter. Maybe we can develop some defense. I'm just going to give him Nick Young's minutes, really see what he can do, see if there's any potential. He's on a 1-year deal, so he's a free agent at the end of this year. He's 6'6", so he's got some size. So he'll really just get Nick Young's minutes, and we'll see what he does, and we'll see if he's worth re-signing him at the end of the year. We'll really get back and evaluate him at the end of the season. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video, which was a lot about trades and what other teams are doing, what's going on around the league, what we're doing. We finally got rid of Young. But the Pacers really hurt us with putting out all those veteran 3-and-D wing guys on the market, getting rid of them. It really hurt Brewer's value specifically. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get rid of Brewer. I want to know some stretch 4 and stretch 5s from you guys. Put some in the comments that we could maybe go after or target. Another interesting thing that's developing that I'm going to watch and we'll get into maybe more in the next video is Emmanuel Mudiay is being dangled out there by the Nuggets. The Nuggets have Gary Harris, Jameer Nelson, Will Barton, Alec Burks, and Jamal Murray. They just got Alec Burks, so they have a ton of point guards and shooting guards, and Moutier has pretty much completely fallen out of the rotation. He's not playing at all. They also have Malik Beasley, a young guy they like, but Moutier has completely fallen out of the rotation, really not playing at all, and they're winning games right now. They're pushing for that 8 seed, so they really don't see a lot in him right now. He was in that Russell draft. He was the 7th overall pick. I really liked him and Russell in that draft. This is really interesting to me because I think if I could maybe make a push for him, that we'd have to put Russell at the 2, but to have Moutier at the 1, he's an athletic freak. It's actually surprising. He has been working on the 3. His 3 is almost a B-. It's a C+ right now. So he's actually not, like, his one knock is that he can't shoot at all, but the mid-range and the 3 actually look decent. I'm not sure what they would want. I might talk to them, we'll see, but I'm just throwing that out there that Emmanuel Moutier is being dangled on the market by the Nuggets, and this is just interesting. I think he's a young guy I really like. He's 20. I think it would be interesting if we could pair him up with Russell. So let me know what you guys think about that, who we could maybe give up for Moutier, who you guys think we should. I don't want to jeopardize anything, but I definitely think that could be a big move to get Moutier from the Nuggets. There's about 2 weeks left until the trade deadline. I'm not sure if we've seen the craziest trades because these are some big trades being made. I'm not sure if there's going to be a lot more heading up to the deadline. There could be a lot more. There could be some eye-opening ones. I'm not really sure. We'll see. Next video, we'll probably be talking more in depth about what we could possibly do, who could possibly move. So with that, I want to thank you guys for watching, and